You're listening to Restaurants Reinvented, a podcast for restaurant brands who want to put growth back on the menu. In each episode, Jen Kern, the CMO of Q, highlights innovators and change agents in the restaurant industry and uncovers how leading brands are modernizing their operations to drive efficiency and meet the evolving demands of guests. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Restaurants Reinvented. This is Jen Kern, and today I am here with Justin Keenen, the head of technology from the Hart House. Hi, Justin.
Hi, Jen. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to have you here today. I mean, I'm always excited to have my podcast guests here, but Hart House has been getting quite the fanfare lately, and I feel like it's just the up-and-coming darling in our space.
I hope you're right. I think we're right. We've got everything lined up. I really have never seen a brand that has so much going for it. We've got just like from soup to nuts. Everything we're doing is just lined up. We're all very experienced multi-unit operators. We have amazing leadership, amazing ownership, an amazing brand. Oh, and by the way, the food's pretty good too. So
Yum.
I don't know. I mean, it's just like we're set up for this rocket ship, and I'm super excited about it. It's just we're gonna take over the world.
Well, I'm really excited about it too. I'm thrilled to watch the journey. I mean, it's so fun to see a brand new restaurant, new concept in a pretty trendy space, all plant-based, doing something new, which is QSR, plant-based QSR. I
Yeah,
mean,
we're not quite the first to do it, but definitely, I mean, it's been very, very recent. So I think we're gonna, we're hoping to be the first to really do it at scale.
mhm.
We want to get just a piece of the QSR pie, and it's not that much that we need really to make an impact. The impact that we want to bring this, accessibility to plant-based diets into places that haven't really seen it. You've seen it in the fast casual space, you've seen it in the casual dining, but QSR is relatively new, and it's gonna be fun. In case you don't know, I know it's probably obvious, but Kevin Hart is our namesake and our big celebrity backer. So I'm just gonna get that out there because not everybody knows that.
Well, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And I want to dig in a little bit more because I know that you met Carrie Fitzmaurice, who also has opened a plant-based
There you go. Yeah.
Pure Grit barbecue in New York City,
Hmm.
more of a fast casual. And I got to eat there last week, which was a
Wow,
thrill.
I'm
And it was
jealous.
oh my gosh, it was delicious. The
I bet.
brisket, or whatever it's called, the Impossible Burger brisket, was
Crazy.
out of this world. The pulled jackfruit was out of this world. So we'll dig into that a little bit later, but let's go ahead and by way of introduction, can you give our listeners background, tell us who you are and how you found your way over to Hart House?
Sure. Yeah, it's been a trip. I started, as many of us have, washing dishes when I was a teenager to earn gas money. I had a
Mm,
66 Mustang. Gas, I think, was 87 cents a gallon, but I needed to feed it so I could get around. That was my first impetus for getting into the business. Actually, I'll back up a little bit. Before that, my grandfather actually ran food trucks. He
oh,
started
wow.
a business of food trucks back in the 50s, actually. So the name of it was called Snackmobile. Mr. Snackmobile was my grandfather. It was the pickup trucks with the big silver back on it.
Yeah,
It was referred to kind of as industrial catering. But
right.
those are what he called cold trucks. He had over 200 of those. We had hot trucks, which are what you think of as food trucks today. They were just the hot trucks because they had a grill. The cold trucks didn't. So when I was a kid, I grew up, climbing on pallets of Cokes and chips and candy. And, I was
Stop.
the owner's grandkid. So I was like kind of, treated like royalty around there in the warehouse. There's a big ice house we could, get in and stuff. But yeah, so there was a huge kitchen, a large industrial catering kitchen. So in a way, I was born into the business, but it took me a while to make it to the tech side. I was in a restaurant and someone came in to fix our computers, our Aloha computers. And I realized that if that guy can do it, then I can do that. So made the jump into the tech side. It's all been, history from there. So I grew up in Scottsdale. So PF Chang's was one of my first brands. I worked for Samaro in New York, which was 500 unit corporate owned units. Jumped up to Rubio's, done Tocaya, which is a
Mm.
regional modern Mexican chain here in LA and Southern California, about 20 units. We also have a sister store called Coke Madera and Veggie Grill. Before that, and Veggie Grill was one of the leaders, if not the leader, in the vegan fast casual space. Not no stranger.
So you said you made the jump from food into tech. When was that? When did you start in tech?
Oh, do you want a date? Because it was a long time ago.
I'm curious.
Yeah, it was a long time. It was so, Aloha was the POS of the decade, right? I mean, it was the first Windows-based touchscreen POS. So it was growing like crazy. So I really built my career off Aloha and being able to fix it.
Yeah. And now you're at Hart House at
Hmm.
this hot new brand, and you are the very first person in technology at a new brand. And so what I'd love to talk to you about today is how are you building that technology stack? Because you have a luxury a lot of CTOs don't have today. And
Right.
this is going to be part of hopefully what will turn into a CTO series. We had Don Gillis on, the CTO of Freebirds last week. We have you on now. And we're really wanting to tackle those questions around technology for fast casual and QSR restaurants. And this is an industry that's been plagued, not lagged behind, but also plagued by legacy technology. So here you are at a new concept as the first CTO getting to build it all fresh.
Yeah.
What has that been like for you and what does it look like? And let's talk about the process and how you're tackling each thing at a time.
Yeah, I mean, that was what attracted me to this. It's not quite blue ocean, but it definitely is green field. There's
Yeah.
whatever we can do, which, I'll be honest, that is scary in its own right, but also, exciting. Like I love to, I think I'm at a point in my career where I know, kind of how things need to get done. Like I said, we have a very experienced team. And this journey, by the way, I mean, we just opened last month, but this journey has been going on for almost a year. So
Yeah.
the foresight that our founders had to build, build the team to really establish the foundations and to hire a tech guy before we even had any restaurants open. And that's really where this all started, right? Because a lot of
Yeah.
restaurants will open their first restaurant just to see if it's viable, right? Let's just see if this one works. Okay, we got another
Right.
one, maybe three. Okay. And they really haven't added anyone in tech. They've just relied on their vendor partners until they get to about 15 to 20 units. And then they say, oh, maybe we should hire someone to do the menu or whatever it is. So the flip on that was huge, right? Because the last year I've been spending, which is, kind of going over those possibilities and what is the modern stack look like. Right? And I've got a little taste of that because at Tokaya, I had some of those similar rules, right? I never had a server in my office. I don't want servers anymore. There's no point in having anything that's not cloud-based at this point in time. But I built out a roadmap, I built out a 3-year plan. I'll be honest, that was kind of like deck fodder to be,
Hmm.
sort of knowing full well that it's not really ever gonna, I'm actually working on things that are in year 3 of my plan and I'm in month 1 and it just
Wow.
flip flops so much. The idea is just modern and flexible. Make sure that it's something that your users want, right? So bring to the table only the things that you think are going to work for them and let them kind of decide between, best of breed and whatever platforms you want. I mean, obviously, I guess we should say that like we are best of breed. Obviously, we're not going to build a lot custom at this point in the game. However, it wouldn't surprise me if that starts bleeding into my stack because it's just so much easier these days. And that's, I think, the biggest lesson is that things are easy. Things are shouldn't be that hard. We should, most of everything that we can do now in tech, I don't have to like wake up at 2 in the morning and reboot an Exchange server anymore, right? All the things that we used to do, things are just so much easier. A couple of clicks get done, projects that used to take 2 months. So I want to make sure that I'm agile and able to move and pivot as quickly as possible. That's basically what I'm looking at. I'm looking at best of breed partners. I'm looking for software companies that are not too old, but not too young, right? So we're kind of in that sweet spot. Ones that are excited about working with me and push them a little harder, right? Let me influence them in ways that help them and help their product for the industry and not just for what I'm doing at the time. When I find those kind of partners, then I know it's the right thing to do.
So I know Andy Hooper is the CEO
Hmm.
there, and I had him on, oh gosh, early in this podcast. He came on when he was at And Pizza.
Hmm.
And so I've had the pleasure of meeting him and getting to know him. I know he's a fabulous leader. And he brought you in, as you said, over 10 months ago, before the first restaurant was ever opened. And let's just call that reinventing restaurants right there. Because like you said, usually, and I think it's the same thing with marketers, by the way, in these smaller
Hmm.
chains, it takes a couple restaurants before they start getting serious about all these non-essential functions, right?
Yeah, right.
Um, but so Andy had the foresight to say, like, hey, and tap you on the shoulder. we need a technology leader, strategist, someone that's really knows their stuff to come in before the restaurants are even ready to go prime time.
Mhm.
And give us a little look behind the curtain. What was that initial conversation like, and what did you sell him on in terms of the way you would do this in your vision?
So first of all, Andy's been here a lot less time than I had. So
Okay.
he is, we had a different CEO when I was hired, but I mean,
Oh,
the
okay.
question still applies.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was this conversation. It was, how do you scale and how do you build in a restaurant from store zero, and what do you bring in and how do you balance that? So that conversation is still happening with Andy today. It's, a lot of that stack that I built, that
Yeah.
in the deck, is not implemented today. Right? It's really, you have to focus on the things that are essential, and things that really make an impact. The things that the users are going to have time to really manage and take care of. Because the worst thing you can do is spend a bunch of money on a SaaS product that sits there dormant and nobody ever uses it. Right? User
Right.
adoption is the number one most important thing. The interesting thing about Andy and what he did at And Pizza, what I've been trying to do and now am able to do, is really turn the front end towards the employees as well. I- I've been trying for a long time to build a stack that is equally usable for customers and employees, right? The employees interface with the brand much, much more than customers, right? They're there on a daily basis. So one of the things I talked about years and years ago at FS Tech was building a rewards app for employees. Because that was 5 years ago. I was like, oh, you got to have rewards. You got to have rewards. Like, that was the big innovation of the time. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's great and everything. Airlines have been doing this for a long time. Hotels have been doing this. Why don't we do this for our employees, and really, like, let's build stuff that enables retention, enables, empowerment. Andy's very, very focused on the employee experience. In fact, we're looking at this as a disruption to QSR from the inside. Right? So we want to really treat our employees well. We want to pay them well. We have certified living wages, and we do have actually a rewards program for our employees. So, when things are, certain metrics are met, they might show up with a Starbucks card and say, hey, thanks, you did a great job today, Bill. And treat yourself to Starbucks floats. So we're really getting to do some stuff that we really wanted to do for a long time. And your point about non-essentials, it's not lost on me either. I think that's the shift, right? That's the shift. Is tech the non-essential, right? Tech, we used to be like plumbing, right? We need plumbing. Okay, I guess plumbing's essential. But nobody really cared about it until it wasn't working, right? And when it
Right.
wasn't working, oh my God, we got to call it. Justin, we got to call him. We got to fix this thing. That was
Yeah.
really what tech was kind of looked at, right? It was always kind of a cost center. It was a necessary evil to some people, right? You had to have that touchscreen Windows based POS or else you couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
But the shift is now that tech is no longer optional. And and I think we've been saying that for a while. I think we've all heard this at this point in 2022 and through COVID and everything, that COVID acceleration and how tech really had to get adopted. But I'm really feeling the shift now, that no longer is it an option, right? It's a requirement. And that, I think, speaks to why tech was brought in early, why we're bringing in tech leadership. And I include Andy in that too, as a CEO.
Awesome. Where did you start? Like, did you first go out and get a POS? I mean, you're talking about this whole employee, like putting the employee first.
Hmm.
Phenomenal.
Hmm.
Gotta do it. Gotta do it. That's also not a nice to have anymore. Putting the
Right.
employee first and thinking about how they interact with the technology. So, what was the Stack's origins? Where did you begin?
It's a good question. I'm trying to think. I know we definitely thought about digital first, right? Digital channels first. We wanted to make
Mhm.
sure we had a robust digital channel that can scale.
Mhm.
We are, definitely concerned about scale as we grow. We have many, many stores in the hopper. Yeah, POS was probably one of our biggest concerns. There's a lot of opinions on POS, right? Ultimately, it's kind of an operational project, right? They're the ones pushing the buttons, but it really does have to enable your platforms. I mean, it has to enable other platforms, has to enable the entire stack, right? So POS is obviously very, very important. To be honest, like, the first decision I made was KDS. Like, I think that KDS is the most important in-store technology, where that production that happens in back is, not insignificant. I want to make sure that they had what they needed, that had a really robust KDS system. So I kind of started building it up from there. And then, again, best of breed, smart and informed decisions. But really, it was kind of those three things: it was our online platform, our POS, and our KDS that really led the way.
And you've mentioned best of breed a couple times. I'd like to just unpack that a little bit
Sure.
because I think it probably means different things to different people. If you've been in the industry a long time, I think it's not lost on too many people that you can either go best of breed or single source or one solution, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, how do you define best of breed?
Well, I actually really don't like platforms that try to be all things. I much prefer the partner that can stay in its lane is such an overused word, but you know what I mean? Like stay focused on its core principles. If it's an
Hmm.
online ordering platform, great. You're doing online ordering. I want to make sure that everything else I need is enabled, right? If there is a rewards platform that does the same thing, right? The rewards platform is also best in breed. That's what they all have to play nicely together. But I don't need an online platform that also does like half-assed rewards and half-assed this. They never do everything well. I want a platform that does what it does very, very well. That's big challenge these days.
Yeah.
Everything, try and be everything, and they just want to increase their revenues, right? And try and get what you call stickier, right? The
Mm.
more they have you, the more they have you. So that was
Right.
one of the things I noticed with like NCR with Aloha and Menu. They used to be separate. MenuLink was a thing you added onto Aloha. And then it's what happened. They bought them and they started absorbing them, and then they started building features that were only available for people that were, it's a game that they play. I think it's misguided. I think the shareholders or the people in the ivory towers really think that's a great way to increase revenue, but it's also a great way to spread yourself too thin. Those are what I try to avoid. So everything's got to play nice in the sandbox. That's the most important thing, and that's what I really look for. That's probably the number one thing I think about, and I think that message is starting to come through to a lot of platforms.
Right. I think that's a great way to explain it. I mean, you're talking about essentially scope creep, right? And it's true. It happens. I mean, I've worked in many different industries,
Yeah,
and as soon as you get successful in one area, the shareholders or the investors or the CEO, they want to like broaden the focus.
exactly.
And it is one of the things I love about our company because we have stayed completely in the lane of fast casual and QSR only. And I have people a lot of times say to me, I don't want to say all the time, but oftentimes, like table service brands will come and say, like, why can't you guys? And it's like, believe me, we do the due diligence, but we want to stay really good at what we started to say we were really good at. And it is focused and it is narrow in a way, but there's plenty of challenges and things to conquer in the enterprise space for restaurants. So, just staying fast casual QSR has been better for us and for me as as a marketer because when that scope winds, your brand also gets diluted. And so it's not even just been in our industry, but that it just happens a lot. And it is a shame because I think from a buyer perspective, I mean, I'm the same way. Like when I have a marketing agency come to me and they're like, oh, and they're selling to me and they're selling to me. And I'm like, what are you really good at? Did you start in PR? Did you start in graphics? Because it's always comes back to one thing that they're really good at. You can't be, it's like you said, you can't be good at everything.
And
But
that's
the good,
true in life. I mean, in
yeah,
life, and that's true across industries.
yeah,
100%. I mean, everywhere you look, it's like it's the same thing. I get ads on Instagram for a company that made their a belt company right now. Oh, but now they're selling wallets. Now they're selling watches. Now they're selling other
yeah,
stuff. And they just dilute themselves, right?
right,
And rather just
yeah,
go to the best place and buy the best belt they can and be done with it.
right. So you're building your stack. So you've got the online ordering, you've got the POS, you've got the KDS. What are you working on today?
What I'm really working on is guest experience. I mean, I am working on employee experience also, but I'm focused on guest experience as we get ready to launch our digital channels. I want to make sure that that experience matches the in-store experience as much as possible. I want it to be enjoyable, easy, not frictionless, but reduced friction, right? I want to make it really easy to get there, get the food. Like I want to just make sure that my food comes out at the time you want to eat it. Right? That's kind of one of the tricks I think the industry has, and that we've been trying to solve for a long time. So that's mostly what I'm focused on: training materials and building some more, bringing some more partners into the stack. And probably the number one thing is data management. So now that I have all these great platforms, this is the perfect time for me to start building my data. I'll just call it a data warehouse for the sake of conversation. So start building that, start collecting that data. I have a lot of it already and it needs to go somewhere. And it may not be that I have to deal with it right now, right? I may not know what to do with it for a minute, but there's no reason that I can't start collecting it.
Well, that's a great point because data is another one of these terms that the industry is really focused on is getting the data and how are you using the data. And it seems like we're still a little bit away from being able to actually use real-time data in an effective way that's going to drive revenues and profits, as well as help on the labor side. So I would love to know where that journey takes you and what you have planned there. I mean, I'm guessing with just one location right now that you don't have huge plans for the data, but I guess there's a question in there about how do you see data really helping?
It's, I mean, incredibly powerful. I mean, there is so much to do with it. There's more data in the world right now that we can figure out what's right. I
Yeah.
mean, technically I could get every button press from my digital platform, every button press from my POS, every button press from my KDS. There's actionable insight in there.
Mhm.
Don't ask me how to do it or what to get, or like I don't know yet.
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
most people don't know yet. I think if you want to look at it from a kind of an organizational perspective, like, I mean, like organizing where the data, the buckets are, right? So you want to organize everything as best you can so that when it comes time to use it, you're there. I think the most important thing is, iterate, like just keep trying stuff, keep looking and you know, keep going. I think there's a lot of opportunity to collect data that we don't even think about, that there's things out there that can really make a difference. Machine vision is coming, and that's something where, that's a ton of data. What do you do with it? And AI and all those kind of, emerging technologies that are super powerful and we're all starting to adopt. And I see real true use cases for them. But what are we going to do with it? Right. So, from a marketing perspective, I think it's a little more cut and dry these days. I think, you want to segment and you want to, drive buying behavior. You want to hyper segmentation is kind of a thing now, right? You want to really get the right message to the right people at the right time. You want to really drive profitability. So we had some conversations last week about, price elasticity and like what happens when you trade an item in. You launch an LTO, what are you trading out of there? Like a lot of people don't even know that. They just think, they run it by gut feel. Right? Oh, this is great. It's so popular, super duper. Well, you might be losing money on it. Well, you might be losing customers on it. You don't really know. So, the personalized marketing, I think, is something that we're all starting to get comfortable with, but there's endless possibilities and there's all sorts of things that I'm thinking about doing with actual real in-store data and channel data that can really make a difference for everyone and make the
Yeah.
operations a lot more efficient.
Yeah. Well, I would think menu data too. I mean, as a guest myself and even when I was at Carrie's restaurant last week, I was giving her some recommendations about the menu, not just the wording of the menu, but when I think of it from a data standpoint, like the most popular items. As a new concept, which you are, I would think it's gonna take a while for you to see what the most popular items are, and the data will hopefully show that, right? And maybe it's not 1 or 2, but there's 1 in each of your categories, but in QSR, you wanna keep a fairly limited menu. You don't have
We are.
the options to have, like, really long menus, and those seem to perform best anyway, like, the more focused like, back to focus, the more focused the menu, I think the easier it is for the guests in the QSR to order quickly. So I'd love to know, like, as you go along, like how you get that data to determine those items. I mean, I keep thinking back to, as you were talking about the data, one of our favorite salad places here took all the meat off the menu, and my husband nearly had a fit. I mean, they just had it was one of those bowl places where you could go through and you could get
Right.
chicken or say, but it was a salad place, and he was like, "Why did they take" and I asked them about it, and they said, "Well, it was getting too expensive," and it's like, I'm curious about that. I'm curious if they looked at the data. I mean, again, I just have one point of view here and one, it's not, like, statistically relevant, but I think data with menus, I would say, is a pretty big lever.
Yeah, and pricing especially. I mean, pricing is
Yeah.
going up across the board everywhere. We're always been so reticent to raise prices in this industry. We're always afraid that, it's going to radically alter our value proposition and lower sales. But, you
Yeah.
know, I don't know. Do we know? I
Yeah.
mean, we can guess, right? We can look and see, or we can put it in place and see what happens over the next couple of months. or we can really do real testing and real data-driven decisions, you know?
Right.
I don't see that happening as much at least in the smaller organizations. I think the really large organizations are getting better and better at that.
Yeah.
But the smaller
Yeah.
ones are just now starting to learn it.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to take price. I mean, we just have to take price as an industry, and the supply chain is upside down, and we're having so many problems with everything that we have to. I mean, it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. When we talked a few weeks ago, you had mentioned you had order ready board that you were coming up with
Mhm.
a new plan for order ready board. Can you share some of that? Because I think
Yeah,
that has a lot to do, obviously, with the guest experience.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, being new to QSR, one of the first things I kind of learned was that you know PA systems are bad. I mean, that's what we're.
Yeah.
You know, I've also got team members that are you know losing their voices, yelling numbers in the restaurant right now. So, order
Really?
ready board is definitely kind of an emerging. I don't want to call it emerging technology because it's been around for a while, but it's emerging guest experience. The guests are getting trained by other QSRs and people to learn to look at them and starting to notice and starting to know that they're useful to them. So really, what I want to make it is really super on brand, super fun, super attention grabbing. I want it to be as noticeable as a PA system without the noise that's happening with it. And I just want it to be fun and funky and different and I mean, it could be anything from, a cartoon voice yelling, stuff or like the Batman graphics, like pow blam, like boom, your order's up. Like I want it to be really eye catching and really fun. That marketing tech merger is real, that
Yeah.
MarTech kind of idea, but a lot of people don't realize that it's real in a creative sense, right? It's not just, you know, how's your email structured, those, segmentation and all those kind of fun things that happen in the MarTech stack, but it's really more about branding and the experience and making it fun. So the order ready board is going to be, I'm going to try and make it as interesting as possible, as fun as possible, and as useful and functional as possible. It's one of the areas I'm exploring machine vision.
Mhm.
Technically, a machine camera should know when the order is ready and should know when the order is picked up. So that's what I want the board to really operate hands free. Like I don't need anyone to manage that board. That's been, I think, the downfall of the order ready board is, you either have to have a bump screen or something ready for the operator to have in front of them so that it goes up on the order ready board and clicked cleared off. If it's not integrated with KDS, then you need something else to, also. So I've seen 3 screen systems for order ready board, and that's something that's too complicated. That's
Right.
something that ops will just they won't see the benefit of it, right? So again, keeping that value proposition like that user adoption, not just looking at the guest side, but the employee side. Like, I wouldn't give the employee something that they're not going to want to use and not going to be easy and seamless to use. I'm not going to give the guest something that they're not going to use. So
Right.
it's a little bit of a trick. I don't really see a lot of people doing it well. I see some of the bigger QSRs having those order ready boards that just have 10 to 20 orders on them, and the order numbers are 5 to 6 digits long. They fall off on a timer, I think. I don't even know how they fall off. Maybe they have to bump them too, but that's the point when they don't get ready, and that's when we're training the guests to ignore it.
That's so cool. I love the idea of the machine vision in there and almost making it like automated, hands free.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, we can do that. I mean, we have the technology and the capability of doing it. It's just connecting the dots, and that's what I think probably one of my most important roles is in the company is connecting all the dots.
Hmm. Hmm. Dawn talked last week about biometrics, and she said something similar about, um, you know, the less an employee needs to touch a screen, the better.
100%.
And yeah, and so I was like, "Oh, I love that." Just keeping things like really simple, very futuristic, if you will. And retraining people, right?
Yeah.
Retraining people. You don't need to be constant. This isn't like a cash drawer anymore,
Right.
right? Like this isn't a POS, it's just a cash
Right.
drawer. And giving new people new ways to do things from an
Sure.
employee standpoint is huge. And you talked about the employee rewards. What are you doing there?
We're using a partner called Honor Roll. That is,
Hmm.
it's basically an employee facing app that rewards them for attendance or I'm not like speed of service, right? So if a team really beats speed of service metrics, we'll reward the whole team.
With
Um,
what? What are you rewarding them with?
It varies. We try to keep it different. I mentioned the Starbucks card earlier. I was like, that's pretty generic, and people aren't as excited about that anymore. But that's one of the things we can drop in there. Like, hey, coffee on us. It's that
Hmm.
kind of idea. I mean,
Okay.
it's not like here's a new Toyota, but it is like something in between. Here's a gift card to Amazon, or that kind of stuff, or
Yeah.
even or here's an extra day off. Like, here's a paid day off. Go just relax and recharge. That's
Right.
just one of the pieces. We're also giving all of our employees a lifestyle spending account. And we're giving them benefits, full benefits, at 30 days right off the bat, no matter how many hours they work. So,
Wow.
and that's on top of our certified living wages. So, it's
Right.
just a piece of the puzzle, but, we think people should be excited to work here, and we want to enable them in many, many ways. And I
Yeah.
keep that in the back of my mind. Like, that is kind of the underlying thought behind the hands-free and the machine vision, right? It's the underlying, let's make this job as easy and see, and I want them to enjoy coming to work. I don't
Right.
want guests yelling at them and saying, "Where's my order?" That kind of stuff. Like, anything I can do is focused on that and making the
Yeah.
jobs easier and more fun and more rewarding.
Have to do it. Have to
I
do
think
it.
so.
Because I keep going back to this. I heard an operator say to me a few months ago, people don't want to work in restaurants anymore. It's like,
Yeah,
true.
no, they don't want to work in your restaurant anymore.
Right? Is
That's
that
what.
what it is?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
They don't want to work in that restaurant. They're tired of being treated the way they've been treated. They're tired of getting wages. They're tired of that. We recognize that. Like things like when new statutes come out, California passed, new minimum wage and stuff. We're like, yeah, great, bring it on. Like, we want to raise
Yeah.
the whole industry. We're going to lead the way and set by example.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And is that coming from Kevin? Where's that coming from? Because that's huge.
I think it's something we all share as values, but it's
Hmm.
something that Andy is really bringing to the surface and bringing with him. I don't want to speak for him, but I think I'd be safe to say that one of the things that attracted him to this brand himself was the ability to do kind of things that we've all been trying to do for so long. And, it's like, it's time. It's like time to kind of fix things that have been broken for a long time, and really, like, hopefully change things for the better, make this place a better place to work, and a better planet to live on.
Yeah.
It's important to us.
And
I think
you
it's important to all of us, but he's really the
absolutely.
driver of that.
That's yeah, absolutely. And it is. It's just gotta happen. And it has to happen. We need brands like yours,
Yeah.
well funded, setting that example. And you mentioned, okay, so they're getting livable wages, you're doing the rewards, you're giving benefits, you're working on improving the culture, number one, like
Mhm.
make it a place that people actually want to work. And then you mentioned a lifestyle, something like a lifestyle.
Yeah,
What is that?
lifestyle spending account. It's basically a
Lifestyle spending account.
discretionary
What is that?
the discretionary account. If you wanna,
Okay.
if you wanna take yoga classes, if you wanted to, go and rent a sailboat and, go on a little sailboat ride, like, for an hour, like, whatever you want to spend that money on to just, the intention is to recharge, relax, and kind of de-stress and, do things, lifestyle to support your lifestyle. If let's say you're really into downhill skiing and you needed some new boots, whatever that is to support your lifestyle. On that same note, I mean, we're doing kind of a forced savings account as well. It's called Sunny Day Fund. We're actually making an additional contribution to the Sunny Day Fund so that they have a forced savings account they can use. The idea, sunny day, right? So not a
Hmm.
rainy day fund, but a sunny day fund. So, you can save up and take a vacation. You can save up and go to that nice dinner. But of course, it is a saving. So if something were to go wrong, like your car battery dies, you need to get a battery, something like that.
Yeah. It's fantastic. And can you help me understand a little bit about the brand in terms of the brand ethos? What are the brand values and how are you aligning that with the culture and with the employees and all the programs and even the technology stack?
Yeah, we have an acronym. I wish I could remember all. We just heard it, so I don't have it memorized yet. But
Okay.
it's really like craveability, remarkability, accessibility. Um, oh boy, I wonder if I get it right. Value. I'm gonna miss the E, but anyway,
Well, that is the acronym then, CRAVE.
crave. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's it's
Okay.
close. I'm close. Don't quote. I mean,
Okay.
I may not
Okay.
have this exactly right yet, but
Yeah.
no, but that is the idea. We want, first and foremost, it's food, right? It's got to be good food no matter what. Whether it's plant based or whatever else it is, it's got to be good food. That's number one.
Mhm.
Number two, it has got to be remarkable. Our namesake is a remarkable guy. I think there's a lot of noise out there in the world, and we want to make that a noticeable and remarkable experience in many ways. So when I talked about the Order Ready board being fun, being animated and having videos and stuff like that on it, that was because I want it to be remarkable. I want it to be something you remember. Yeah, of course, I'm a little, I want it to be functional. I want it to be attention grabbing, but I also want it to be something you remember. I want it to be something different and something that no one else
Yeah.
is doing. Accessibility is another big thing. So we're going into markets at a very reasonably low price point. It is a true QSR price point. Our sandwiches are $6 or $7. So that is something we really want to do, is bring plant-based eating to places that maybe haven't had a lot of options or have been ignored in the past or have been discounted like, oh, that's not the right neighborhood for this. What we
Mm.
find is, and I think we find this in general in the world, is, you think it's not the right neighborhood. You put something in and all of a sudden it goes crazy. And they're like, yeah, we've been waiting for this for years. There's kind of neglected demographics, there's neglected neighborhoods, neglected markets. I think we can really like jump into and really make it easier for people to eat plant-based once in a while. Yeah, we want plant-based eaters to have another option as well, but we want really omnivores and flexitarians to be able to have that option. So those are really what's driving us, as well as like the employee side.
I love that because it can be pretty expensive, right? I mean, the plant-based stuff can
Yeah.
sometimes, be more expensive than eating chicken
And
or
sometimes for no
even
reason, right? I mean,
yeah,
Starbucks charges an extra $2 for a non-dairy milk when it's probably cheaper than the milk it is themselves, right? So people take advantage.
yeah,
My
yeah,
my fiance is gluten free. Everywhere we go,
yeah,
you have a gluten free
yeah.
bun, sure, it's an extra $6, right? Like
Right.
people like
100%.
to kind of take advantage of that stuff when really it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
Keep things affordable and easy and accessible, and it'll get adopted more. And
yeah,
not only that, on the food technology side, the production side, there's new analogs coming out. I mean, I can't even keep up with them. I mean, we have a full-time corporate chef, head of culinary innovation, Mike Salem, brilliant guy that is just his job is to keep up with this, keep up with the new analogs, the new technology for creating those analogs, and the new
yeah,
product that's going to be available to us over time.
yeah. That's really cool.
It's
Is
super fascinating.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And is Kevin himself, is he a vegan?
He's a flexitarian.
He's a flexitarian. What is that?
Yeah.
What does
So
that
that's
mean?
where, it's where you try to be conscious of what you're eating, and I guess how to describe it. I'm sure there's a much more utilitarian definition for it, but it's yeah, I want to eat plant-based more. I want to eat maybe less meat, or I maybe want to eat
Okay.
more fish, or like one day a week I'm going to do this. It's almost like that vegan after 6 idea.
Yeah.
Just trying to make an impact where you can, and doing, in little increments. You don't have to be a full blown plant-based eater, vegetarian, vegan, anything like that to enjoy our food, or to be part of that, or to even make a difference. Right? I think if
Yeah.
we can get a small, minuscule percentage of carnivores to switch just a small, minuscule percentage of their diet, we're going to have a big impact on the environment and our supply chains.
Where do you see the industry today from a technology standpoint? Where do you see us and where do you see us headed?
Well, like I alluded to earlier, like I really do see the technology moving to the center of the business, of the hospitality business.
Mm.
It's now like, really important to have it, front and center. So, and yeah, I think where we're moving is that kind of idea where we're really, I used to be like Domino's was the technology company that sold pizza, right? But in
Yeah.
reality, we're all really technology companies in a way. Consumers are making their decisions based on the technology you have available in a lot of ways. And I really feel that shift happening in the industry quite a bit. I think it's just adapting to, the way it is. Like the way it is that, you might have a lot more SaaS platforms these days, right? You might have a lot more technology in places that you never thought you'd have technology before. Being ready for that, being able to move quickly. One of the biggest challenges that I have, and I think a lot of people in my position relate to, is being in the moment when you're needed, right? So IT projects technically, traditionally have this long lead time, right? Like you start ideating and then start planning, and then, then you got to sign contracts, then you got to do pilots. By the time you get the product launched, whatever it is, I mean, your business could be way down the road and like not even worried about that particular problem anymore. So being able to react quickly, being able to implement quickly, not being afraid to fail. That's a kind of a startup mentality. I feel like that startup mentality needs to be more prominent, right? I think it's something that we can learn from startups, and hopefully I can help in whatever ways. But you know, I'm not afraid to burn things down either. Like if I built something and it's not working, I'm not afraid to give it up and leave it.
Good.
So, it's that whole thing about legacy. I think legacy is kind of a weird word. I think legacy you can translate to like the guy before me. That's really what it is, right? It's the IT guy before me chose this and I hate it. So it's legacy. Or you can say that legacy is something we should have changed 5 years ago and didn't, right? So you're trying to kind of shift the blame on the product when you say it's legacy. But really the blame is on you because you didn't change it when you should have, or you shouldn't
Mm.
didn't do the upgrades when you should have, or you shouldn't didn't do your due diligence, and you kind of sat there stagnant, waiting for something to happen, right? That kind of mentality is just going to hold back the whole business. Um, so you have to just really be able to move quickly and don't be afraid, right? Don't be afraid. Another thing that's important, I think that I try to frame everything in it is don't forget what you're running away from. A lot of people like to run towards things, but don't forget what you're running away from, right? The legacy platform, it's like, oh, we can't put in something else. It's going to cost too much. Oh, there's no R. We got to pencil out this ROI on this, right? What is that going to be? That's running to something, right? You're trying to chase something. I see this in the kiosk conversation all the time. We're going to save labor when we put in kiosks. Okay, that's every single person I know that's put in a kiosk says, no, we don't save labor. That's not the point. But what you're running away from is bad guest experiences or refocus labor, or labor that's focused too much on taking orders when they can be doing other things. So don't forget what you're leaving behind and how important that is and what value that has, right? If you're running away from something legacy, there's a whole bunch of garbage you get to jettison off the back of the boat. That's just as important as the stuff that you're headed towards.
Mm. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I want to hit rewind and hear you say it all again because it's really very poignant. I mean, yeah, what does legacy mean? Like, does it mean you're shifting the blame to someone else or something else? Is that
What is
what legacy
legacy?
means?
It's older
Yeah.
than X number of years, then it's
Yeah.
legacy. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
cloud-based. Is that legacy? I kind of hate the term. I think it's an
Yeah.
excuse. I think we've kind of pinned it on, like people like to pin, Aloha Micros, those kind of things, right? Those old POSs, those legacy POSs. But, that's not 100% fair on them. But
Hmm.
if you have a legacy system and you consider it legacy, why do you still have it? I mean, what, then get rid of it. Like,
Yeah, well, I think
there's
it comes down I think it's what you're saying. I think it's all in there. Like, have you been innovating and evolving? Like you said, staying in the moment, the innovation, the evolution. If you're like Oracle, right? And you've continued to evolve, I'm just throwing out examples of like, I use Acrobat like a lot of times for design. And has that evolved? No, Canva is taking over the world, by the way, in
yeah.
marketing and design. Designers are now being at like professional designers are now being asked to design in Canva, which is a free tool, right?
Yes.
Um,
Perfect example. That's a great example.
yeah, so evolution, right? Like, are you continuing? Like, then it's not. Then in my mind, it's not really legacy. If you've evolved and stayed relevant, then it's not legacy. If you haven't, and I think that's why it gets used a lot in our industry, is a lot of companies haven't been pushed to innovate,
Well,
right? They
yeah, they think of it as expense, right? You don't see a
Mhm.
lot of restaurant chains that have an R&D budget, right?
Right,
They're not worried about that kind of stuff so much. They're just trying to
yeah,
cut costs and manage their P&Ls, those kind of traditional things. But that kind of goes back to what I was saying about best of breed and kind of making sure everybody plays well together. I
mhm,
never ever sign any length of term contract with a company that's going to hold me back in any way, right? And that can never be replaced. Everything's got to be able to be plug in. If I've got Acrobat throughout my organization, it better be damn easy to pull it out, put something else in really quick. That's one of the biggest decision factors that I use when I'm deciding on from best of
mhm,
breed. I consider that best of breed. I want them to earn my business constantly. I'm not signing a 30-year contract with them. In fact, I try to keep them to 1 year wherever I can. 2 is my most I'll ever give anybody because things change too much. Things change
yeah,
too much in 1 to 2 to 3 years. So it's always, you have to earn my business and you have to be replaceable. A lot of the vendors don't like that so much, but I have a
mhm,
fair number that do earn the business and are going to run much longer than their contracts are because they stay relevant, they stay up to date, and they're in that business all the time.
Mhm.
But I'll never let anything hold me down.
Yeah, well, the contract terms, that's a great example too.
Mm.
I mean, I'm thinking about my own technology partners that I use here in marketing that I've used for years, and how they over the years have tried to, okay, we'll give you this discount, go 2 years, go 3 years. And I've always wanted to stay 1 year with my partners and having that flexibility. Cause I know there's a lot of people that have gotten locked into 5, 10 year terms.
Yeah.
And that's a lifetime today.
You got to ask yourself
Lifetime.
why they're doing that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and if it's money, if I have to pay a little bit more to have a lower term, I'll do that. But yeah, too many vendors look at it as a contract value, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not a lifetime value. And
Mm-hmm.
they really think like at the end of the 3 years, you're going to leave them. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
possibility. I mean, obviously, if you don't keep up, if your support isn't good or your roadmap isn't working out or you're not evolving fast enough, absolutely, I'm gonna leave you. But why not just do those things? And then
Yeah.
we don't have a problem, right? Let's just keep
Yeah.
up and like keep going. Like this is a rocket ship
Yeah.
that I'm on right now, and you have to be able to keep up on this rocket ship, or we're going to leave you behind. I make
Yeah.
that very clear to anybody that I sign with.
That's great. That's great. Keep us all accountable, Justin, for
Oh yeah.
sure. And responsible and responsible. We believe that there's a responsibility that we owe the industry, that it hasn't been there all along. And so we take it pretty seriously. One of the things you also said is, in my mind, I'm thinking of it like, what problem are you trying to solve? You said, what are you running away from and what are you running to? And to get clear on that before you just ixnay over here and go to the next widget, kiosk, whatever it might be, like what is the problem you're trying to solve? And that is it in the guest experience, or is it in the employee experience? Is it the UX and the UI? What is it? And it's great advice.
Well, quantifying those too, right? To piggyback on my, where I was saying about like when we're a cost center, when technology is a cost center, or we report to the CFO, right? Because nobody else wants to keep an eye on us, right? Somebody's got to control our spending, right? So the
Don said
CFO,
that too. I was like, really? Reporting to the CFO?
yeah, I mean that's
Terrible idea.
traditionally, well, that's how it's been. I mean, that's really how it's been. I've reported to many CFOs. Some of them understand technology. Some of them think they understand technology. Some of them don't at all. But they do know
Mm,
what the P&Ls look like, and they do
yeah.
know that they need to see something. I always felt like that ROI exercise was just too, right? I felt like there was some sort of like, hey, if we do all this, you can always kind of make the numbers kind of look right or make it kind of show an ROI over X number of months or something. And I was just kind of to appease them. But you can't make all your decisions that way. It's so much more important to be strategic and about where you want the company to be in, X number of years or X number of months. So if you just, when I say that before, like if you shift the IT guy from the CFO to the CEO, right? And the leader of the company is also leading technology and understands that it's part of the DNA of the brand, and that the things that we're going to do are going to enhance the brand experience, and are going to enhance the employee experience. We're going to enhance, I don't know, faster reporting or enhance the board experience, whatever that is. That those kind of strategic decisions are much, much more important and not always quantifiable. So that's kind of what I mean. Like, what are you running from? Are you running from like, is it going to be a legacy platform in another year? Right. If you like in another year, like this thing's kind of fading away. It's getting old. We're outgrowing it. Now is the time to start thinking about those things, thinking ahead and getting those things on your radar. And it's maybe not a roadmap per se, because roadmaps are kind of useless. It's like budgets. They're useless. As soon as you make them, they're wrong. Right. But, knowing where you want to go and knowing how you want to remain competitive, remarkable, and, and, really delight your guests. I think it's a lesson that I've learned from Netflix before Netflix kind of turned a little bad, but, Netflix would constantly be updating their UI, constantly be changing things around because they knew that they had to be your first choice in your media streaming platform. They wanted to be that
Mm,
all the time. And in order to do that, they had to constantly be changing. The pace at which they changed and updated things was just absolutely amazing, but it was very much part of their strategy and built into their DNA from day one.
yeah. Yeah. So such a good reminder. And even the way that you just mentioned what you did about reporting to CFO versus reporting to a CEO, I mean, you're exemplifying it
Hmm.
Just through our conversation today, you've talked about aligning the tech to be remarkable, which is a big part of your brand ethos and your brand values is to be remarkable. And I remember the first time you talked, you said, I want to make it this way. So you're already thinking, I mean, like you own like a business owner, like, the a
Yeah.
C-level versus if you're reporting to a CFO. I mean, I haven't heard a single CFO. I'm sorry. I mean, no discouragement to
Nope.
CFOs
Me neither.
that has mirrored the brand, like saying like, "Hey, we need to make the technology, mirror the brand." It's
Yeah.
gotta be I'm losing for whatever reason the word I'm trying to grab, but it's gotta emulate the brand.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna get that from a CFO. You're just not.
No, so 2 things
So,
about that is the CFOs
yeah.
I think the CFO has to be really good at translating that into board speak, right? I think the board
Mm,
that's their number one goal. It's like, "Yes, this is gonna cost us money, but here's what we're gonna get out of that, and this
yep.
is why we're doing that." And I think there's a framing that you can do to those higher level, the higher level leadership about that and how we're gonna stay relevant in the marketplace. Again, maybe not quantifiable, but hey, we gotta remain competitive, and that's the kind of language you can have. And the other thing you said about ownership, like, yeah, there's been kind of some talk, like you want your employees to act as if they own the company. That's a very one-sided conversation. You want them to take responsibility and really, not take that pencil home with them or not, whatever, like pay attention to the pennies and the nickels and dimes. You want
Mhm.
them to be empowered to like, whatever the actual nuts and bolts of empowering like a lower level employee to make decisions never comes through. It's like it's one of those kind of things that it's like almost propaganda. Like we want you to be ownership. But at the higher levels, when you get to like the director or above, I think it is important to keep that in your mind all the time. It's on me to put myself in the center of the business.
Mhm.
I like that technology is moving to the center of the business, but it's also on us as tech leaders to move yourself to the center of the business, be involved, but you can be involved. I actually am bringing in a demo of a automatic, like, lid sealing machine for drinks. Nothing to do with technology, right? It's nothing to do with IT, traditional IT. I don't even know why they were at a conference that I went to. I thought it was the coolest thing. It's kind of emerging tech in a weird kind of way. But
Yeah.
that's what I'm showing the team is that I care and I'm interested in everything that's going on. And I'm not just
Yeah.
like, gonna, oh, that's not my department. Stay in your lane is not something that I like to talk about. It's my
Right.
lane is all lanes.
Yeah.
But
Is the business.
yeah, and so, it
Yeah.
is on us a little bit to kind of to muscle our way into where we need to yeah, what we need to do.
Yeah.
And it's harder at lower levels. When you can get to a CIO or, an SVP or executive level, obviously you're probably already there or you did a good job at doing that. But
Yeah.
kind of in this middle level that I've gone through recently from manager to director and VP is to make sure that you're doing it and you're doing it in the right way and you're thoughtful and purposeful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have this question I want to ask you.
Shoot,
And I know we're getting over an hour, so we'll wrap up soon, but I could talk to
fine.
you all day. When you look out at the industry from a technology viewpoint, what gets you really excited that you see happening? And what gives you pause and scares you?
Oh, wow. Okay, let's think about that for a second.
What gets you really excited? I mean, we just came out of FS Tech. You saw a lot of tech. We've talked about the changing role of CTO and the technology moving to being, a primary part of the business and
Yeah.
not an afterthought. I mean, what are the things that you look at and you see happening and you're like, oh, so excited about this?
I'm sure we've talked about these things,
Hmm.
throughout the conversation they've come up. Like, obviously, I think I'm excited about the merger of tech and marketing. I'm excited about how that's happening and how we're getting more and more involved. And I'm excited about how guest experience is really a focus in the digital space, right? So really, really making sure that people can interact with you and get good hospitality, even in the ultra convenient kind of way, environments that we're in, get that kind of touch points where they may not be expecting them. That's exciting to me.
Yeah.
And the same, and a given is that anything I say about that guest side is also for the employee side, right? I want to make sure that, like I said earlier, like the everything that the employee wants to interact with this is also seamless and easy and like super cool and just convenient, right?
Hmm.
I want to make sure I can support the hospitality, you know, equation, right? So many people talk about like what is hospitality and where is hospitality going, and I don't know if there's a strong hospitality point in QSR, right? It's more about delivering product. But I grew up, I kind of skipped some parts of my background, but I did work fine dining at some time. And I always have that. I always want to make sure people feel, at home. And, eating is such a emotional thing, right? We're giving you
Yeah.
something you're going to put in your body. Like it's an experience. It's not just a sustenance. Like, hey, I got to eat like fast. Sometimes it is, but sometimes like, you really want to experience it. So anything I can do to support that is exciting to me. That scares me.
I just gotta say, before you
Yeah.
go on, it scares me. It's personal.
Yeah.
Eating is
Oh, it is.
personal. Hospitality is personal. I don't care if you're a QSR. They're putting they're giving you money to eat your food.
Yeah.
I take that very personally. And you know how I feel about this topic of hospitality.
Yeah.
You know, like we need to fight to keep it alive, you know?
Yeah.
Because we're not Netflix and we're not Amazon. We're delivering food and it's an experience and it's a choice that you're putting something in your body and it is very personal. It's very personal to me and it really irritates me when people are like, "Oh, we got to be like Amazon." Well, you're not eating. It's not food. You're ordering stuff to put in
Yeah.
your house or whatever. I mean, it's different. Okay.
Yeah.
What the off my
Yeah, I mean, they
soapbox.
say you eat with all your senses, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
not that many things that you do with all your senses, smell,
Right.
taste, sight, and sound, everything that it's eating. I mean,
Yeah.
it's what we put
Yeah.
into our bodies. It's one of the most
Yeah.
important things we do on a regular basis.
Yeah. So what scares you? What terrifies you? I think this is an easy question. But
Oh,
what do you see going on? You're like, oh my gosh, stop that. Stop it.
hmm.
What scares you?
Oh, I wish I knew what you were thinking now.
I think I'm too opinionated. I'm like,
Well, it's probably something if I thought about, I would be scared of. Uh,
yeah.
I'm definitely scared of economic factors. I think, that's going to influence all parts of our lives, all parts of our industry. I see the industry bifurcating into kind of this, QSR, like ultra convenient, and I see it going towards a very high touch. And there's not much being in the middle these days. So that does scare me a little bit, because that is part of that hospital. In order to get that hospitality and experience, you have to go to a much higher end place. That worries me, just because, like you said, this is my industry. I have a deep care for it and for providing that. So that does scare me a little bit. And then price that we're going to have to take because of inflation, supply chain, and that's going to drive that divide even more. And just that really affects our accessibility idea, right? So if we
Yeah.
are not really accessible to people, that it kind of shoots itself in the foot. I'm trying to think of something from a technology side that scares me. I guess probably biggest concern that I have is that now that we have all this stuff, it's like privacy and compliance and keeping up to date on legislation and meeting their expectation, our users' expectations for privacy, and being able to manage all that stuff. That part's good, right? So machine vision is fun, sounds great, right?
Hmm.
There's machine vision that can tell you sentiment, right? One of the things I like to know is like, yeah, and they did it on a guest side. So here, there's a theme going here, which is guest
Yeah.
employee, but they did it from a guest side. They wanted to see how many people walking in the door were happy when they came in, or happy when they left, or vice versa, those kind of things. I'd also like to see how many of my employees are smiling at every guest, right? Or who smiles the most. Like maybe have a competition. And part of my employee rewards program is who smiles the most at my customers, right? Who said, right,
Wow. Yeah. I
sounds
love that.
cool.
Hmm.
Also, privacy, right? Also, anonymization, also PII, also that part of it. So,
Yeah.
I heard a story about, I think it was Checkers, because I think they're in the news a lot about how they are doing AI
Yeah.
drive-throughs, right? I think
Hmm.
they're one of the pioneers in that field, and they
Hmm.
have a sign on their drive-through. I think they said, I'm not even 100% sure how this works, but a sign that said, "You by placing an order, you've accepted our terms and conditions." Really? Like, is that everyone in the car? Is that everyone that's done that? I
Yeah.
mean, how is that possible? Supposed to open up my phone, go to your terms and conditions website right now, hit in the checkbox before I can place an order with you?
Yeah.
Those kind of things are rapidly evolving. I think there's a very volatile landscape there. So let's see what happens. That's probably one of the things that's happening most.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was yours?
Well, I think we touched on mine. I mean, mine is that the being all things to all people and doing bad, honestly, doing unethical or bad business. And so I see a lot of companies in the space more on the tech side
Mm,
that it just scares me a little bit. There's so much. There's so many widgets now out there, and it's gotten so crowded and competitive, and just doing the right thing has become kind of an afterthought. And maybe I'm just opinionated about that because I've heard some of the stories.
but I have some for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard them from people like you,
Yeah,
and the buyers on the restaurant side have told me stories of getting burned and being sold something that wasn't true.
right.
And so that scares me a little bit because, like I mentioned earlier, I think we have a responsibility to educate and to guide and lead and help people understand the power that this technology can provide, but also the limitations. Like nothing can do everything. There's no panacea. There's no silver bullet here, right? Like be real. Be real.
Yeah. So that's a different approach than I was thinking about. But yes, absolutely. I have learned over my, many years that, you don't have to be ethical to be in business. It's not a requirement, yeah, legal, sure, but ethical, there's a
Yeah.
pretty big gray area. And I see it a lot in the
Yeah.
industry. I see a lot of people being taken advantage of, small time operators, mom and pops, SMBs getting taken advantage of,
Yeah.
all sorts of things. There's a lot of people think that fake it till you make it is a like legit rule. Like just fake it, like just lie, and just
Yeah.
pretend. And it just, yeah, it does bother me. I got pretty good spidey sense on that. I've actually, worked in some scenarios where I got to kind of see behind the scenes of some of that. So I always am keeping my eye out. And, I guess I'm also make myself very available as a reference to any of my peers, anyone watching this podcast. You ever want to know kind of like the real dirt on some things? I'll tell you, or I'll tell you I don't know, or I'll tell you, I'll point you to someone that does know. Yeah, absolutely. There's some even very specific people and companies in this space that do scare me.
Well, on a brighter note,
Yes,
as we wrap,
there's some great ones too.
uh,
Yeah, most
yeah,
of
absolutely.
99.
Always, always,
Yeah.
always. What advice do you have to CTOs in this space, or to rising CTOs, current CTOs? Like, what would you say? I mean, you've given good advice all along, but
Yeah, don't
as a wrap, like parting words.
yeah, don't be afraid. Move fast. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got from a CEO that I worked for, who was just a genius, super insightful person. But he said to me, like, there's a lot of IT guys, but there's not a lot of IT guys that can move the football. So really being able to keep things moving, it's my number one goal. I've taken that to heart. I've been fairly successful. I mean, it's not easy. That is not an easy challenge. You have, that 18-month lead time I was talking about from ideation to contracts to all that kind of stuff. That's hard. You got to shorten that period as much as possible. And because, like if CEO says, hey, we should do this, that means he wants to do it now, or it doesn't mean he wants to do it in 18 months or 24 months. And by the time your train has left the station, he's already wants to go to a different destination. So the most important thing for IT, I think, is to move the football, keep things moving, eliminate excuses, cut those chains, legacy stuff. Don't be afraid to burn things down. A modern POS platform takes like no time to train on. Like it's, you can set up a cloud-based POS on a back counter, let them play with it for 2 weeks, move it to the front counter, and you can go. Like it's not as hard as you think it is. So stop making it that hard. And that's going to get you like kind of in the moment. It's going to make sure that, it's one thing to bring tech in the center. It's another thing to bring it to the center and not, you know, not succeed, right? Or not keep it moving. Because the business will move. So your center there, the business keeps moving. You're no longer in the center. You're back to where you were stuck. I see that often. I see most CTOs kind of the larger you go, the harder it gets for them to change. But this is change time. This is the time of rapid evolution.
Yeah.
It's no longer acceptable to have, platforms that are over 5 years old, I'd say, or 7 years old. If you have a platform that old, it's got inherent security risks, inherent management risks, whatever it is. It's time to like modernize.
Mm. Mic drop. It's go time.
It's go
Time to
no,
change.
that's real. That's real. I
Yeah.
mean, that's, the COVID was the thing, right? COVID, the
Yeah.
pandemic was like, oh shit, let's go. We got to do all this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
I
It's go
was,
time.
I think I was lucky because I had planned on many of the things we needed to implement in COVID long before. So I got
Mhm.
lucky on that because I had really good leadership with good vision. And so I was able to do that. But that's one thing. That was survivability. That was like, surviving. Like that was like react to survive or, survive or die. That was the choices to make. Those choices still stand, but they're much more like long term, also just as imminent. Without the pandemic,
Mhm.
it's more of a
Mhm.
competitive nature or more of, but this is it. This is time. And I saw that at FS Tech. This is the first year, like FS Tech is typically, the big brands go up there and they talk about what they're doing. It's like, yeah, great. This is not innovative, right? It's not innovation what they're doing. They're doing stuff they should have been doing 2, 3 years ago and what other industries did 10 years ago. Uh,
Mhm.
but, this is the first year that I felt like there was a buzz and excitement from the brand side of like, okay, we're actually ready to do stuff. Like this is
Yeah.
like, it's no longer like hey, let's go look at the, shiny objects. Let's see what's out there. Like, let's go talk and pretend like we're rock stars and get taken out to dinner and all that
Yeah.
stuff you do at a conference. This was like, I think they were really, truly interested in what can get them to the next level.
Yeah.
And that is definitely exciting. I think it's about time. It's time to move the football faster. Right? 'Cause the longer
Yeah.
you take to move that football, the more the other teams are going to score on you. That's it. Get going. Don't lollygag. Like, don't be afraid to burn stuff down. And just do it.
I love it. Lollygag. I haven't heard that word in a while. One of my
Yeah,
favorites.
yeah. I mean,
Don't be a
prioritize.
lollygagger.
Well,
Don't
there's
be a
probably
lolly. Can we name the episode "Don't Be a Lollygagger"?
okay.
I love it. I love it.
It's always this thing where IT guys have this prioritization list, and then they say, "Well, we want to prioritize this." Okay, and then you say, "Well, what'll drop off this list?" Right? I mean,
Right.
you should know that pretty obviously. If there's something you're working on your priority list that's not like driving these business values we're talking about, or not getting you adopted, that happens a lot. Actually, you put something in, and like, people aren't excited about it. They just, yeah, okay, this is something corporate told us we had to do. Just do it yourself. Start dropping stuff. Be reactive. Don't ignore your stakeholders. Right? Get stuff done for them too, but make sure that the business first is moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a great way to wrap because you've been saying these things all along. Like, stay agile. It's time to go. Be fearless. Burn stuff down. Love how you keep saying, like, burn it down. If it's not working, burn it down. Throw it out.
Yeah,
That's
that's
like
it.
whole agile, like fail forward fast. Like, burn it down. Rip it out. Try something else. Like,
Yeah,
these are all such great reminders and advice, I think, to folks in the space and critical for reinventing restaurants.
it's
So
true. It's really easier
yeah,
to do in a startup,
yeah,
so that's why I'm doing it, and that's why I'm
yeah.
hoping to like encourage and inspire others to do it. It makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways.
Well, I'm so excited to talk to you today and to watch your journey with Hart House. I
Thank-
know it's going to be fabulous,
Oh yeah,
and they've got you, so they're a step ahead. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your wisdom and
of
insight
course.
and experience. And wish you all the best.
Thank you. Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
And anytime, I'm always happy to talk personally or another episode on different topics. Anyone
Yeah.
that's listening, I'm available for, anything you want to bounce some ideas off me or have a conversation. Just let me know.
Awesome. Where do people reach you? LinkedIn or what's your go-to?
Yeah, LinkedIn's probably the easiest way. Sure.
LinkedIn. Okay.
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Justin. Hope you have an awesome day and stay remarkable over there at Hart House.
Thanks, Jed.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Restaurants Reinvented. This show is brought to you by Q, a restaurant tech company paving a brighter future for operators with the industry's first unified commerce platform. If you enjoyed what you learned in this episode, make sure to follow Restaurants Reinvented in your favorite podcast app, or visit qbeyond.com/podcast to get immediate access to all of the latest episodes.